My sister stole my $50 case savings for her dream vacation, so I exposed her lies at her engagement party. I never thought my own sister would betray me like this, but here we are. The woman I grew up sharing cereal bowls with and building blanket forts somehow managed to drain my entire savings account while I was dealing with the biggest crisis of my life. What happened next at her engagement party still gives me chills when I think about it. It all started 6 months ago when I got the call that changed everything. My dad had suffered a massive heart attack at work and needed emergency surgery. The medical bills were piling up faster than I could count, and our insurance was fighting every single claim. I had been saving for years to buy my first house, squirreling away every extra dollar from my paychecks into a separate account that I rarely touched. $50,000 of pure determination and sacrifice, sitting there waiting for the right moment. My sister had always been the golden child in our family. She could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, even when she dropped out of college twice or moved back home at 28 because she couldn't hold down a steady job. I was the responsible one, the one who never asked for help, who always had his life together. Maybe that's why nobody suspected what was coming. The surgery went well, but Dad's recovery was slow and expensive. I was splitting my time between the hospital and trying to keep my own life from falling apart. That's when my sister offered to help with some of the financial paperwork. She said she wanted to contribute somehow, and I was drowning in medical bills and insurance forms. I gave her access to my accounts, so she could help organize everything and maybe set up some payment plans. 3 weeks later, I got a notification that my savings account was overdrawn. At first, I thought it was some kind of banking error. There was no way $50,000 could just disappear. I called the bank immediately, and that's when I learned the truth. Multiple large withdrawals had been made over the past 2 weeks, all authorized with my account information. The transactions were all legitimate from a technical standpoint, but I sure as hell didn't make them. My heart sank as I realized what had happened. I confronted my sister that same day, and she broke down crying, claiming she had made a terrible mistake. She said she had borrowed the money for an emergency of her own, but promised to pay it back within a month. The story kept changing every time I pressed for details. First it was for car repairs, then medical bills, then some kind of legal issue she couldn't explain. I gave her the benefit of the doubt because she was family, and maybe there really was some crisis I didn't know about. But as the days passed, her behavior became increasingly strange. She started avoiding my calls and would leave family gatherings early whenever I showed up. Something wasn't adding up, and I decided to do some digging on my own. What I discovered made my blood boil. Through some casual social media stalking, I found out that my sister had been planning an elaborate 3-week vacation to Europe with her boyfriend. The timing matched perfectly with when my money disappeared. She had been posting about restaurant reservations in Paris and booking tour of Italian vineyards. This wasn't some emergency, this was theft, plain and simple. When I confronted her with the evidence, she finally admitted the truth. She claimed she deserved the vacation after all the stress of helping with Dad's medical situation. She said I would never miss the money anyway because I was always so careful with finances. The audacity of her justification left me speechless. She had stolen my life savings and then tried to make me feel guilty for being upset about it. The worst part was that she had already spent most of the money. The trip was booked, the hotels were paid for, and she had even bought expensive new clothes for the occasion. She begged me not to tell our parents, promising she would find a way to pay me back eventually. But I was done being the understanding brother who always cleaned up her messes. I started documenting everything: bank statements, text messages, social media posts, anything that could prove what she had done. I wasn't sure what I planned to do with the information, but I knew I needed to protect myself. Meanwhile, my dad's medical bills kept coming, and I was struggling to figure out how to pay them without my savings. That's when I learned about her engagement. She had been dating this guy for less than a year, and suddenly they were planning a wedding. The announcement came just 2 weeks after she returned from her stolen vacation, glowing with a tan and showing off pictures of all the amazing places she had visited with my money. She was acting like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just ruined my financial stability for her own selfish desires. The engagement party was scheduled for the following month at our parents' house. She had invited everyone we knew: family, friends, coworkers, even some of Dad's nurses who had become like family during his recovery. She was planning this big celebration while I was still trying to figure out how to pay for groceries without dipping into my emergency funds. I spent weeks debating what to do. Part of me wanted to handle this privately to protect our family from the drama. But another part of me was furious that she was getting rewarded for her behavior while I was suffering the consequences. She was getting engaged, planning a wedding, and basking in everyone's congratulations while I was eating ramen noodles and canceling my own plans because I couldn't afford anything. The night before the engagement party, I made my decision. I couldn't let her continue this charade while I stayed silent about what she had done. I prepared a simple presentation on my laptop, nothing fancy, just a timeline of events with supporting documentation. Bank records, travel photos, text messages where she admitted to taking the money. I wasn't planning to ruin her party, but I needed people to know the truth. The engagement party was everything you'd expect: balloons, flowers, a catered spread that probably cost more than I spent on food in 2 months. Everyone was there, dressed up and ready to celebrate the happy couple. My sister looked radiant in her new dress, probably bought with money she stole from me. Her boyfriend seemed genuinely nice, which made me feel even worse about what I was about to do. I waited until after dinner, when people were relaxed and sitting around with their drinks. My sister had just finished giving a speech about how grateful she was for everyone's support, and how excited she was about starting this new chapter of her life. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was talking about new beginnings while I was still dealing with the aftermath of her betrayal. I stood up and asked for everyone's attention. I said I had something important to share about my sister's recent adventures. At first, people thought I was going to give some kind of sweet brotherly toast. My sister looked nervous, but she was trying to play it cool. She probably thought I wouldn't have the courage to actually go through with it. I connected my laptop to the TV and started my presentation. I explained that while our father was recovering from heart surgery, my sister had access to my accounts to help with medical expenses. I showed the bank statements that proved she had withdrawn $50,000 of my savings without permission. Then I displayed her social media posts from the European vacation, with timestamps that matched the withdrawals perfectly. The room went completely silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming in the background. People were looking back and forth between me and my sister, trying to process what they were seeing. Her boyfriend looked confused and hurt, probably wondering what other secrets she had been keeping from him. My sister tried to defend herself, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence was right there on the screen for everyone to see. She had posted dozens of photos from expensive restaurants, luxury hotels, and tourist attractions across 3 countries. The dates lined up perfectly with when my money disappeared from my account. What happened next was the first plot twist I hadn't expected. My sister's boyfriend stood up and announced that he had been paying for the entire wedding himself because she claimed to be broke. He had been working overtime and borrowing money from his own family to cover her expenses. He thought he was being a gentleman by taking care of everything, but now he realized she had been lying to him about her financial situation the entire time. The second surprise came from my own mother. Instead of defending my sister like I expected, she stood up and revealed that she had been suspicious about the vacation all along. She had questioned how my sister could afford such an expensive trip when she had been asking for loan money just months before. My mother had actually been quietly investigating on her own and had discovered some of the same evidence I had found. The third twist was the most shocking of all. My sister's best friend, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly spoke up and admitted that she had been asked to lie about helping pay for the trip. My sister had coached her on what to say if anyone asked questions about the finances. She had been planning to use her friend as an alibi if anyone got suspicious about where the money came from. The room exploded into chaos. People were talking over each other, asking questions, demanding explanations. My sister's boyfriend was packing up his things and heading for the door. Several family members were confronting her about other suspicious financial behavior from the past. It was like everyone had been holding back their doubts and concerns, and my presentation had given them permission to speak up. My sister tried to leave, but my father stopped her. Despite being weak from his surgery, he was furious about what he had just learned. He demanded that she explain herself and figure out how to pay me back immediately. She broke down crying and admitted that she had been living beyond her means for years, always assuming someone else would bail her out when things got tough. The engagement party obviously ended early. Most of the guests left quietly, probably feeling awkward about witnessing such a family drama. My sister's boyfriend returned the engagement ring before he left, saying he couldn't marry someone who had lied to him about something so fundamental. He seemed like a decent guy, and I felt bad that he had gotten caught up in her mess. Over the next few days, the fallout continued. My sister was forced to sell her car and move back in with our parents to start paying me back. She had to cancel her wedding plans and deal with the embarrassment of explaining to all her friends what had really happened. Several family members stopped talking to her altogether, at least temporarily. The most unexpected consequence was that my presentation had exposed several other instances of my sister's financial manipulation. Cousins came forward with stories of loans that were never repaid. Friends admitted they had been lied to about various expenses and events. It was like pulling back a curtain on years of deceptive behavior that everyone had been too polite to address directly. My parents were devastated, not just about the money, but about how their daughter had been treating people for years. They had always made excuses for her behavior, but seeing it all laid out so clearly made it impossible to ignore. They promised to help ensure that I got my money back, even if it meant taking legal action against their own daughter. The recovery process was slow and painful for everyone involved. My sister had to get a second job and stick to a strict budget to pay me back. She was required to provide monthly financial statements to prove she was making progress. It took almost a year to recover the full amount, and our relationship has never been the same. Looking back, I sometimes wonder if I handled the situation correctly. The public confrontation was dramatic and effective, but it also caused lasting damage to our family relationships. My sister has made some changes in her life. She's more responsible with money now and seems to have learned from her mistakes. But the trust between us was shattered, and I don't think it will ever fully heal. The experience taught me some hard lessons about setting boundaries with family members. I had always been the one who helped everyone else, but I learned that being supportive doesn't mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most likely to betray your trust, simply because they know you'll be reluctant to fight back. My father made a full recovery, which was the most important outcome of this whole ordeal. We were able to pay his medical bills eventually, though it took longer than expected without my savings account. The financial stress added to his recovery challenges, but he's doing well now and has been supportive of how I handled the situation with my sister. I never did buy that house I was saving for. By the time I got my money back, the market had changed and my life circumstances were different. Instead, I used the money to start a small business, which has been moderately successful. In some ways, my sister's betrayal forced me to take risks I might not have taken otherwise. The most lasting impact has been on my approach to family relationships. I'm more careful about mixing money and family, and I don't automatically assume that blood relations means someone has your best interests at heart. I've learned to trust people based on their actions rather than their promises, and I'm more willing to stand up for myself even when it's uncomfortable. My sister and I have had some conversations about what happened, but we're not close anymore. She's married to someone else now and seems to be doing better with her finances. We see each other at family gatherings and maintain a polite relationship, but the easy brotherhood we once shared is gone forever. I still get angry when I think about how she justified stealing from me. The idea that she deserved a vacation while I was struggling with medical bills is something I'll never understand. But I've learned to focus on moving forward rather than dwelling on the past. The experience made me stronger and more self-reliant, even though it came at a high personal cost. The engagement party confrontation became legendary in our family. People still talk about it years later, usually as a cautionary tale about the importance of honesty in relationships. My sister's ex-boyfriend actually reached out to thank me months later, saying I had saved him from marrying someone who would have continued lying to him about important matters. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had handled things differently. Maybe a private conversation would have been more effective in the long run. But given my sister's history of manipulation and broken promises, I'm not sure she would have taken responsibility for her actions without being forced to face the consequences publicly. The whole experience changed how I view family loyalty and personal boundaries. I learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish, and that enabling bad behavior doesn't help anyone in the long run. My sister needed to face the full consequences of her actions to have any chance of changing her patterns. In the end, I got my money back and maintained my relationship with my parents. My sister learned some hard lessons about honesty and responsibility. The engagement party confrontation was dramatic and painful, but it forced everyone to deal with issues that had been building up for years. Sometimes the most difficult conversations are the ones that need to happen most.